Sharks have been around for over 400 million years, and while it's basic human instinct to fear them, or anything with large, pointy teeth for that matter, Hollywood definitely hasn't helped by constantly presenting sharks as vicious, bloodthirsty monsters. That said, not all shark encounters end up with swimming for your life. Or do they? Well, stay tuned to find out what happens when sharks like this big fella enter divers' shark cages and much, much more, as we check out some of the scariest shark encounters ever caught on camera. Shipwreck Coast in Victoria, Australia is known across the globe for its spectacular, underwater shipwrecks. This is because such a fierce wind blows up from the Antarctic, bringing with it a dense blanket of fog that over the centuries prior to the development of modern navigational technologies, many a captain's ship went down after presuming they were further from the rocky coast than they actually were. Nowadays, divers from around the world sink beneath the surface in search of over 700 lost decks, buried masts, and World War I submarines. But with more than 750 adult great whites believed to be roaming Victoria's coastal waters, divers down under often get a lot more than they bargained for. And Australian diver Luke English knows this better than most. In January 2017, Luke was exploring the waters just off Cape Schanck near Victoria's Mornington Peninsula when he came face to fin with a nosy great white. As the shark slowly cruised past, showing off its impressive pectoral fins and resting predator face, Luke had a front row view from where he lay hidden in the seagrass. Thankfully, the great white eventually passed over Luke and moved on without stopping by for a human meat luncheon. I don't know about you, but my camera holding arm definitely wouldn't be that steady if I was staring at the belly of a great white. Another person that remained remarkably calm at the sight of a shark was the guy behind the camera in this next clip, Sam Jaff, whose calm demeanor may well have saved his friend from becoming shark food. In July 2011, Sam was filming his friend from his boat floating 4 miles off Key West in Florida when he noticed a finned visitor in the water.
Hey Heidi. Hey Heidi, get in the boat.
Are you being serious?
Yep.
Now, I know what you're thinking. Where the heck was the shark? Well, if you look closely in front of the woman here, right by her feet as she pulls in her legs, you'll see a tail appearing briefly underwater. Yep, the shark was that close to her. Luckily, the woman made it back onto the boat before the Jaws tune started playing, and as she and Sam both peered over the edge, they were astonished to see several frustrated-looking sharks swimming in circles close to the surface.
Holy, can you imagine?
Look at
Can you
that.
see them?
Yeah, they're like circling.
Ooh, talk about a heart-racing moment. Even though the sharks were never officially identified, they were most likely black-tip sharks, one of the most common species found in the Florida Keys, and easily identifiable by the, you guessed it, black tips on the ends of their fins. Black-tip sharks are small and quick and are known to breach the surface of the water, especially in search of their next meal. However, they're quite timid under most circumstances and not regarded as highly dangerous to humans. On the other hand, it's also speculated that the sharks in this video could have been a slightly less friendly species, the bull shark. These fellas are big, powerful, and generally considered one of the world's most aggressive sharks. But because we never get a totally clear view of the underwater guests, it's difficult to know precisely how much danger the woman was in. Do you happen to know your black tips from your bull sharks? Let me know in the comments. Oh, and while you're down there, how about you give this video a big thumbs up and hit subscribe so you don't miss out on any of my latest uploads. Now, who's ready for even more shark encounters? We're just getting started. In 2014, fisherman and adventurer Jack Strickland was filming a spearfishing video for his YouTube channel Back to Basics in Australia's Great Barrier Reef when the fish he caught got tangled up in some coral. Jack swam closer to untangle it when the unexpected happened. The shark, one of those notoriously aggressive bull sharks, ended up diving back down and grabbing the fish multiple times, taking Jack's spear gun with it. Only Jack wasn't about to cut his losses and head back to the boat. He followed the shark all the way to an underwater grotto, and like he was dealing with a harmless little goldfish, Jack tugged on the spear gun until his line was exposed enough for him to cut it with a knife. So in the end, Jack was left both without a fish and with a spearless spear gun. But I mean, how many times in your life do you get that close up with an actual shark? Well, in Jack's case, once obviously wasn't enough. In October 2020, this daredevil was filming a black-tip reef shark swimming a little too closely to the shore off the coast of Hagerstone Island, Australia, when matters quickly escalated. Despite camera holder Jack never being in any real danger, his dog Tilly clearly thought she was saving her owner's life. Even after the shark floundered and swam away, Tilly could be seen taking a look around the water to make sure Jack was safe. But just because the pooch wasn't harmed during the scuffle, it didn't make the situation any less dangerous. Still, at least as a dog, Tilly dove into the water merely in an act of instinctive heroism. The same noble motivations can't be said for Maxwell Fleming, a California resident who, in May 2019, thought filming his friend swimming with sharks would make for a top-tier TikTok video.
All right, we're in neutral. We're in reverse.
That was a bad idea!
Get on the boat! Ryder!
Maxwell and his friend Ryder DeVoe were spearfishing near the Channel Islands, a chain of 8 islands near California in the Pacific Ocean, when they spotted what they thought was a basking shark swimming close to their boat. Basking sharks, regardless of their intimidating size, only consume planktons and are considered one of the least dangerous shark species. Only shortly after Ryder leapt into the water, Maxwell had a change of mind. Panicking, he started to believe the shark might have actually been a great white.
Get on the boat! Ryder!
Oh, I touched it!
Get on the boat! Dude, that's not a basking shark, dude.
Eventually, after Ryder returned in terror to the boat, upon closer inspection, and with the help of his TikTok comment section, Maxwell and Ryder concluded that it really was a basking shark. Even so, it still doesn't excuse the fact that they were reckless enough to jump in without being sure. The white shark, or the great white, has been reported to be involved in more attacks on humans than any other shark. As the largest and deadliest of all predatory fish, the average great white can grow up to 15 feet long and attacks its prey at speeds of up to 15 miles per hour. I mean, you don't become the main antagonist of a horrifying film series without being at least slightly dangerous in real life. Ryder can consider himself lucky for not actually leaping into the ocean with one. Just ask Arvold Price, a diver who experienced his own nerve-wracking encounter with the ocean's most feared predator. In 2010, Arvold was cage diving near the shore of Guadalupe Island, Mexico, when he saw a curious great white approaching the cage. At first, the shark simply cruised past, casually showing off its razor-sharp teeth, but then it suddenly changed its tune. After realizing it probably wouldn't fit through the bars, you'd think the shark would throw in the towel. Well, guess again. After trying and failing to clasp its jaws around the corner of the cage, it once again popped its nose through an opening between the bars and chewed on it. Needless to say, experiencing something like that would be equal parts amazing and terrifying. Just listen to this elated cameraman as the shark finally retreats. Of course, the encounter would have been all parts terrifying and 0 parts amazing if the shark actually managed to get into the cage. Which is exactly what happened, also near Guadalupe Island, in September 2016. Experienced diver Katie Yonker was leading a group of excited divers in a cage diving excursion when things didn't go exactly as planned. Less than halfway through the dive, a female great white, approximately 13 to 15 feet in length, approached one of the cages. Yan, another diver, pushed the shark away, but seconds later, it bit and punctured the air hose supplying air from the surface. Luckily, Yan quickly descended to close the one-way valve from the surface supply hose so that their underwater hookah-style breathing system didn't lose pressure and continued to supply them with air. Unfortunately though, something even scarier was about to happen. The shark got wedged inside the cage. Can you imagine being stuck in a cage deep underwater with a 15 feet long great white snapping at you from above? Amazingly, the divers all stayed relatively calm while the cage jostled about from the shark's thrashing. Yan, in the upper level of the cage, pushed repeatedly against the shark's side until its nose got lodged horizontally through the opposite bars. Rendered immobile, the shark actually remained stuck like that until all the divers were freed and the crew raised the cage to release it. Naturally, the whole situation can be seen as an unlikely accident, with the miraculous outcome of no injuries. But then again, the luxury vessel and excursion facilitator, the Nautilus Explorer, could have inadvertently encouraged the attack. In previous cage dives in the same area, the Nautilus Explorer reportedly made a habit of wrangling the sharks, which involved tossing a piece of tuna in the water above the cage and pulling it back in as the sharks approached. And even though no wrangling was going on during the cage dive in question, the female shark's comfort with approaching the cage could possibly be accredited to her searching for tuna. Unfortunately, in spite of strict laws being implemented against shark wrangling in Guadalupe, many operators, like the Nautilus Explorer, have found loopholes which still allow them to keep doing it. I mean, it certainly doesn't help that Guadalupe's waters draw in some of the largest great white sharks in the world, including, as you'll see momentarily, possibly the world's largest great white shark ever caught on film. In 2013, Mauricio Hoyos Padilla, a shark conservationist working for Discovery's Shark Week, gathered jaw-dropping footage of a 20-foot-long, 2.5-ton female great white off the coast of Guadalupe Island. The shark, aptly named Deep Blue, was at the time estimated to be over 50 years old and still growing in size. As with most female great whites, Deep Blue has an estimated life expectancy of around 70 years, which, if you think about it, makes the shark quite the mature lady. Mauricio said that he and his team had been conducting research inside a cage in the water when Deep Blue stopped by, dazzling everyone with her unbelievable size. Just imagine having to face off against a shark that big. One chomp and you're probably sliding down its throat like it's a water park ride. A very toothy, lethal water park ride. But regardless of her monstrous size and daunting appearance, Deep Blue kept perfectly calm as she did circles around the team. And, being just as curious as the divers, she briefly poked at the cage before retreating into the distance. Mauricio and his team never tagged Deep Blue with a tracking device, as they often did with other sharks. But despite not being able to accurately trace her movement paths, the shark is frequently reported as being spotted around popular diving destinations such as Hawaii and Guadalupe Island. Amazingly, these kind of insanely long journeys are surprisingly common among great whites. Divers usually recognize deep blue by several crenulations or deep contours in its white belly and gray backside, and multiple pigmentation patterns around its fins and underside. According to George Probst, a seasoned shark photographer, crenulations and pigmentation patterns are as unique to different great whites as fingerprints are to humans. But that's not all that makes certain sharks unique, although some distinguishing features are more striking than others, and not necessarily in a good way. In May 2018, YouTuber user It's Weibo posted a jaw-dropping video of himself swimming with a rather peculiar-looking shark at the Dubai Aquarium and Underwater Zoo. Quite the terrifying sight, isn't it? Despite looking somewhat like a deep-sea goblin shark with its deformed gums, this big fella is actually a sand tiger shark. But don't worry, it's not as evil-natured as it looks. Not only are sand tiger sharks in general not aggressive toward humans, but this bad boy actually has lockjaw, a condition which renders the shark unable to properly close its mouth and results in aquarium keepers having to feed it by hand. Still, that didn't make it any less palm sweat-inducing when the sand tiger shark got up close and personal with one of the divers. Luckily for the diver, the sand tiger shark was totally docile, and there was no need for him to test out his swimming speed in an emergency escape. Speaking of speed, just because our feeble human bodies are physically incapable of contending with the pace of a shark, it doesn't mean we can't bring the speed in other ways. Alex Soto, a professional kiteboarder, experienced a rather uncomfortable example of artificial human speed going awry in December 2018 when he was training for the 2019 Pan American Games just off Kite Beach in Cabarete, Dominican Republic. Kiteboarding is an extreme sport involving riding a board while being pulled across the water by a wind-powered kite, and a blissfully unaware shark casually swimming in the ocean was given a very sudden awareness of the sport in the clip Alex captured. Alex spotted the shark in the water while he was traveling at about 35 miles per hour, meaning he couldn't react quickly enough to avoid the poor fish. And so, Alex collided with the shark with the mast of his foil, a stabilizing attachment in the water underneath his board, and was sent crashing into the water. Luckily, the shark swam away unharmed, but rather than horrified or dismayed by what happened, Alex was actually surprised. In 14 years of kiteboarding in Cabarete, he hadn't once seen a shark. And to have actually struck one at 35 miles per hour? Now, that's a pretty scary coincidence. As we've seen already, at least one place we all know you won't struggle to find a shark are the waters around good old Guadalupe Island. But unlike the previous clips that we've looked at, this next great white encounter, as filmed by cage diver Joe Deguerre in October 2015, is not so much life-threatening or heart-stoppingly terrifying, but rather, well, I'll let you decide for yourself. Yup, that's shark poop. Although I must admit, seeing the ferocious great white in such a vulnerable state, it definitely casts the ocean's most feared predator in a less daunting light. Then again, you'd probably still scream in a similar situation, and for obvious reasons, opening your mouth in such a position would be a horrible mistake, as Joe found out the hard way. While you've got that lovely image in your mind, let's take a look at yet another daunting shark encounter. Fisherman Sean McCormack was out fishing near Wangaparaoa, New Zealand in March 2017 when he noticed something moving in the water next to his boat.
Don't know if you can see that, guys, but it just stuck its head right up out of the water.
Sean had been fishing for roughly 3 hours in 33 feet deep water when, just as he got ready to leave, the great white showed up. The fisherman watched with shaky hands as the shark sniffed around his fishing line, seemingly lured in by the bait, and grazed the boat with its tail before swimming off. At that point, Sean was totally trembling in a combination of fear, shock, and excitement.
Bloodies, look at the camera shaking. Enormous. I took the burley sack out of the water because that's what he was after. I don't know where he's gone.
In his 30 years of fishing, Sean had never seen a great white, and despite being slightly terrified, he considered it a great privilege to finally encounter one. Sean also said that one of his friends had filmed a great white in the area about a week before, and that it was likely the same one, considering how rarely they're spotted in the area. But even with a great white roaming the region, Sean decided not to report his sighting when he returned to Red Beach just north of Auckland. And his reason? Sean didn't want to create panic. Well, I guess what the beachgoers don't know won't hurt them, right? Then again, when it comes to sharks, it actually might. Just ask 34-year-old Melissa Brunning, who, in May 2018, had her holiday ruined by this innocent-looking tawny nurse shark. It had been timidly swimming around the back of the yacht Melissa was cruising on in Dugong Bay, Western Australia, when she wanted the one-in-a-lifetime experience of feeding the shark by hand. As you can see, it all went terribly wrong when the nurse shark latched onto Melissa's finger like a hoover to a curtain, and she was sent plunging into the water. Mercifully, the shark, maybe equally as shocked by her reaction, promptly let go and took off. And despite initially thinking she had lost her finger, Melissa came away with an easily treatable fracture and torn ligament. Not to mention a very thrilling holiday story. Still, Melissa admitted she should have been more responsible from the start, especially since nurse sharks, with their strong jaws and several rows of tiny serrated teeth, are known to be easily capable of catching and crushing all kinds of shellfish. Not to mention the fact that, unlike an animal like a dog, they have no easy way of knowing where the offered food ends and your fingers begin. Have you ever had a scary encounter with a shark? Let me know in the comments below. And as always, thanks for watching.